So we used to travel here a couple times a year, and now we live right up the hill from a good chunk of the resorts here in the Golden Corridor in between San Jose, Cabo, and Cabo San Lucas.
Hey Jen, Max, welcome to San Jose del Cabo, Cabo San Lucas, somewhere in between. You just met Dave. Him and his wife Christy, as he mentioned, moved here. They actually moved here a few years ago, and we're going to hear their story of going from the resorts to residency here in the Cabo area, and get a tour of their condo and hear their story. So let's go ahead and start the story back where I like to start it, which is back before the move to Mexico.
We used to come down to Mexico when me and my wife started dating, I don't know, whatever it was, 15 years ago. We'd come to Cabo, we'd go to Puerto Vallarta, we'd go to Playa del Carmen. We went to some different places in Mexico. I met my wife in San Diego, where I was living and working at the time, and we'd always go across the border to Tijuana, Rosarito, Ensenada. One of our favorite places, Valladolid, Guadalupe, which is the wine country, which we absolutely love. One of the most beautiful places I think ever, and the food's incredible. Our first big trip was Cabo, and we kind of fell in love with it. I'd been once before with a group of guys, but our first real couple trip was Cabo San Lucas, and we started coming probably twice a year once we started dating, and even more often once we eventually become engaged and then married, and we just kept coming. And we always thought that'd be a really cool place to potentially move if the opportunity came at some point in life. Maybe go south of the border, we thought.
One of the things I hear all the time from people thinking about moving to Mexico is, I'd love to do that someday if only I had someone to share it with. Well, that's what happened to today's guest. Dave and his wife have now been happily married for 6 years, and together they made the move to Cabo. If you're single and looking for someone who shares your stage of life and sense of adventure, check out seniormatch.com. Senior Match is designed specifically for adults over 50 who are looking for meaningful relationships, companionship, and people enjoy the same kinds of experiences, whether that's traveling, relocating, or simply enjoying retirement together. Everyone you interact with on Senior Match has been verified. It has live support and an interface that is geared towards senior users. They even have success stories from over 36,000 members. Who knows, your next coffee date could turn out to be a future travel partner, or even someone who you'll someday call your spouse while watching sunsets in Mexico. If you'd like to learn more, visit seniormatch.com. Be sure to use the code that you see on the screen for exclusive offers. Thanks again to seniormatch.com for supporting the channel. Now let's get back to Dave's story.
So it was February. We got married February 22nd, 2020, which is about 3 weeks before everything went wild in the world with COVID. Literally, we just got it in, and 3 weeks later, everything started shutting down. We got back from we actually got married in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. We love Mexico so much. It was kind of in between for her West Coast family and my East Coast family to meet. So got married there, we got back. 3 weeks later, the world kind of goes to hell. And we realized at that point, after a month or two, COVID wasn't going away. And my wife started working remotely. I was already working remotely at that point. And once she started working remotely, we thought, maybe there's a chance that she could stay full-time remote and we could start looking at places in Mexico. It kind of always been a dream of ours. And that August 2020, we booked a trip down here, stayed at Secrets, which is a great adults only resort. Some friends came with us and we did house hunting on the side. Spent about a week and a half down here, and by the end of the trip, we had found our place that we loved and put an offer in on it at the end of the trip. And that's currently where we are right now.
So Dave mentioned house hunting, and actually you can find them on House Hunters International. If that episode is still up on YouTube, there will be a link down below if you want to watch the episode where they found this place. But we're going to actually show you this place. Normally I wait a little further into the video to give you a tour of the house, but let's take a tour now and see their condo.
Come on in. Okay, so this is our second bedroom. And got a nice queen bed for guests in here. This is where most of our guests stay, with the ensuite and beautiful view of looking northeast up towards San Jose del Cabo in the water. And then we got our third bedroom in here. It is a combination office for my wife, and also a bedroom for overflow of guests. And this has got it's the third bathroom, and it's a Jack and Jill into her office. And then we got one of my rescue dogs here, Cooper. Yeah, he's a sweet boy. We're still trying to possibly get him adopted, but he's the sweetest boy. We think he's a Belgian Malamese or Malamute. I forget how to say that, but so yeah, this is a living room and kitchen, and obviously you can see spectacular views of the desert here. I really think $1 million views. Can't imagine what these views would cost in California or something, and got a nice working kitchen where I get to look out at that Sea of Cortez all day, and then our living room. I got the big TV here for watch my sports. I got another one of my rescues here. This is Soxy, and we got one more here named Emma. This is another rescue. She's a little one. That's Emma. Yeah, and we found them both on the street together in an abandoned house. So they were found together in an abandoned house. Soxy was a rescue on the street. We got her, and then we got a fourth one. She's out on the deck. You'll meet her in a second. And then this is the master bedroom. This is our bedroom, and absolutely love it. Cooper wants to do the tour with us, and yeah, this is we got beautiful ocean views, as you can see here. So it's not too bad of a place to wake up every day. And then we got our own ensuite master bathroom.
Oop, there I am in the mirror.
And we got the shower that looks out into the water. So
oh, cool.
It's kind of nice. You get you can do a little voyeurism from your shower here. Hopefully no neighbors see you when you get those open, and then
oh, so they close. They open and close.
yeah, they open and close. If you want privacy, you can shut them.
Cool.
And then obviously the piece de resistance, I think they say, or something along those lines, is our balcony. And here's
okay.
oh, Sox, you want to come out?
there we
Get
go.
the whole family out, and there's our final dog, Lola. She's the queen, the old queen, and she runs the show around here with the dogs. And the other queen is sitting down here, my wife. Yeah, there's Christy.
You've been so good and quiet during this whole interview time, all of you.
Doesn't usually happen when you're not here. Yeah, I spend a lot of time, out here barbecuing and hanging out, and obviously the views are just spectacular. We see whales jumping all the time during whale season, and it's a wonderful community to live in. There's only eight condos in our building, and it's almost like a private pool here. And
very nice. And there is a paved road all the way down to the main road.
Yes,
which is a little bit unique here, I guess.
Yes.
So.
We got 24/7 security here for the 40 condos that are in Velimar, and then there's actually another security gate just to get into the El Tule area. You have to go through a first security gate and then a second one just to get in here, and then so it's incredibly safe and secure, and it's beautiful, and we just love it. Yeah, cool. Couldn't ask for more.
So let's talk numbers. What did this set you back? And what does it set you back on a monthly basis?
So we bought it, I think, at $430,000, right? And that came with the Grand Velas membership too, 10-year Grand Velas membership. And we took out a small loan off that. I think a small loan off it. So we're only paying about $1,500 a month, I think. We took out like $75,000 or something, but. It is typically, Mexico's typically a cash market. There's a place down here that does. Hey guys, hey, hey Cooper. Yeah, so there is a company that does called Moxie that does some financing down here in Mexico, and then it's run through a bank in the States. Do the paperwork through them and run it through them, and then it's go through a U.S. bank. But most people down here, it is typically a cash market, so they'll usually take money out from a retirement account or most people do a home equity loan or something like that. So it is typically more of a cash market compared to the States, but there is financing available, if you want to go through it. It's a little bit harder because it's in a foreign country, but if you're patient, it definitely pays off. We did take advantage of that. There is a HOA fee, and we pay about $750. It's a little higher because it's a smaller, kind of boutique community compared to some of the bigger ones. You're going to pay less. I'd say more like near downtown Cabo or stuff, probably more like the 400 range. So ours is a little higher, but it is a much smaller community. And it's very quiet and serene and very it was built by a resort, so it's kind of got that resort feel. But there's definitely places that have lower HOAs, but our place is beautiful, so we're happy with it.
I'd agree. It is awesome. It's just an amazing view here. But let's go ahead and continue the interview. Back inside, I think we're probably getting a little bit of wind noise on the microphones. There's just a slight breeze out here. So I want to focus a little bit on the difference between living life as a tourist and living life as a local. So let's hear about that.
So obviously, resort life is very different than living as a local. Me and my wife have kind of a hybrid situation. We actually have full access to one of the nicest resorts down here in Cabo called the Grand Velas. It's one of I think only 5 or 6 five diamond resorts in Cabo. I think there's only maybe 15 in all of Mexico. It's beautiful. So when we bought this place, it came with the membership to the Grand Velas, which is really cool. So we're kind of a hybrid. We get to live both the life as a local and we get to live life on the resort too, which is awesome. So my wife's there a lot at the gym. I try to go sometimes, not as much as I'd like. And then the pools, the restaurants, are just awesome. The spa, all that stuff. So we get a little bit of that once or twice a week. But most of the time, we're working. We're going to local restaurants. We prefer to go out to, the local restaurants, find new places, go out with our dogs, walk around town, go to the marina, go to the art walk in San Jose, El Cabo. Just kind of find your niche down here. I think, which is very important. You got to have a lot of. I think we talked about you have to have a lot of patience when you make a move south of the border, both as an American and Canadian or anywhere else. It's very different than America. It's got a lot of the same things as America, but things might move a little bit slower. It's almost like island time in the Caribbean. Things might not get done as quickly. You might not find all your favorite meals and spices or dishes, but overall life is very easy here. It's wonderful. It's laid back. People are very happy. People are grateful for what they have. I feel like too often in America and in Canada and other places are just people go through life so quickly. They forget to look around and kind of enjoy their lives. Things move fast, and Mexico definitely lets you slow down and enjoy life, and we love that down here. The culture is very, very laid back. People are so sweet. Nothing but great, and I'm just so happy we made our move down here, and I think my wife is too. When we come back, when we go home to visit in the States to visit friends and family, where we feel so blessed to come back to Cabo as where we live. And most people are like, "Oh, how long are you in Cabo for? You on vacation?" I'm like, "No, we live here," and we usually get a lot of eye rolls for that, which is always kind of amusing.
So I want to know a little bit about the people, because the people are so kind here. And I noticed a lot of places in Cabo, there's a lot more English spoken. I just went to the Ashley Furniture store because we're furnishing our house in Todos Santos. And one of the beauties of Ashley is they have a store here, and you can actually find the furniture in the United States and sit on it and see how comfortable it is, and then order it down here. But we're looking around for furniture right now. If you have any recommendations for furniture in the Baja California Sur area, leave those in the comments below. But I walked up and I didn't want to just start speaking English to the person who worked there, so I asked in Spanish if she spoke English, and she's kind of looked at me like, of course, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we are in Cabo, and this is a place where a lot of gringos go, and I'm assuming the resorts are very much like that they really are catering to English speakers, and a lot of Cabo also outside the resorts caters to English speakers, but maybe I'm guessing a little bit less so. Let's hear about what the difference is between the people in the resorts and the people outside the resorts, because I think the people in resorts might maybe put up with things a little bit more because they are paid to do so, and there's maybe some other like there's some pleasantries and things like that that are expected in real world Mexico. So let's hear about the difference between the people inside and outside the resorts, and including the tourists.
People that work down here and live down here, the local Mexican citizens, they're just amazing. Really, both inside the resort and outside. Definitely, you're going to get catered to a little bit more inside the resort, and they do speak probably a little more English, but Cabo is so expat friendly. You're going to find a lot more people speaking English here than other parts of Baja, for sure. Definitely more than La Paz and some other parts, Todos Santos. But it is such a tourist place, which is a good and bad thing. It's a little, obviously, a little bit more crowded than some of the other places, but it is, it's easier. You got the Costco's, you got the Walmarts, all that stuff, all the conveniences of America living. But everyone's so nice. I mean, the people at the resort, I consider them, genuine friends. And I've had some of them come over to watch the Super Bowl with me, and they're friends. They're just my buddies, like from back home. Just their English is better than my Spanish, and I try to speak some Spanish to them, and I think they appreciate it. They teach me words that I probably shouldn't be saying sometimes, and they're just great people. And and then out at the local restaurants and stuff, most people speak a little bit of English, because it is such a dependent tourist place. And as long as you are friendly, they're incredibly friendly. I don't think I've ever had a bad incident. Maybe some slow service here and there, but that's just part of the chill lifestyle of Mexico. A lot of Americans are expect people to come over every 5 minutes and check on them, and that's not really the way it works. It's a little bit more like Spain or France. That's part of the charm of living here. They kind of leave you alone and let you chill, which I love. But yeah, I've never had a bad experience. In fact, the people are so friendly. Our first week we were living here, it must have been the first week or two, I got stuck in the sand in my old car that wasn't very good with traction. And within 5 minutes, I think I had 6 or 7, Mexican guys coming over, digging me out with a shovel and boards, and they wouldn't even let me help, other than trying to drive the car. I couldn't believe how hard they worked to get me out, because I dug myself pretty good in there, and it was just amazing. The community feel. They'll give you their shirt off their back, and and from what I understand, that's how they survived during COVID, because a lot of the restaurants and hotels and stuff were closed or very minimum capacity, and they all just took care of each other, which is something that I think America and other places could really learn from, is to how to treat each other and to be neighborly and just be more of a loving community, which I think Americans especially have really forgotten that with all the tension that's going on in the world. So it's amazing how they help each other and treat each other. It's really a great example for other countries and other people.
So I've got a question, and that is, what type of tourist who does really well as a tourist living in the resorts of Mexico, what type of tourist doesn't do well living life amongst the real part of Mexico?
So yeah, there's a lot of people come down here with unrealistic expectations about what it's like to live here. It's not California, it's not Texas, it's not anywhere in the States or Canada. It's very different. It's a very laid back atmosphere. So if you're someone that demands things instantly, it's probably not the place for you. If you get frustrated with things quickly, it's definitely a place you got to be patient. It's definitely a place that you come to relax. If you're a go type of person, it might work as long as you can change your mentality when you're down here. I have a really good buddy that owns some successful car wash businesses back in the States, and he's go all the time when he's back there in Missouri. But the second he comes down here, he turns into Cabo Matt. He turns into Cabo Matt, and he's a completely different guy from what I understand. I just know him from down here, but all his family tells me, completely different guy back home. He's just work. But once he comes down here, he knows that it's time to be tranquilo, time to be chill and laid back. So you can do it if you're that type of personality, go. But once you get down here, it's time to, put away the cell phone, the business calls. I mean, if you're working remote, absolutely you can do that. But just know it's a different pace down here. and some people aren't going to do well. If you expect everything at your fingertips, you know, you don't have your Nordstroms down here, you know, you don't have your Saks Fifth Avenues. You know, this is a place where people wear flip-flops, and we go to, you know, chill local restaurants and lots of local, you know, fresh food and organic food and seafood and you know, fresh vegetables at the farmers market. Like, it's a very laid-back place compared to the States. So, yeah, I just wouldn't recommend it for people that are, I would say, if they're a little bougie or they got their nose in the air, you know, it's not a place for you. You know, stay at the resort, do that, and yeah, but living here, it's probably not going to work out well for you.
Yeah, definitely no one down here wants to hear you talk about how things were better back in the United States, or do comparisons or things like that. Definitely very annoying for the locals, and also very annoying for other foreigners, because we all know, we've all gone through that transition to say, like, yeah, there's more potholes down there than there are in the United States, but you know, you just drive a little slower, drive around them. If you get a flat tire, someone's way more likely to help you with your flat tire than they are up in the United States. So I'm going to switch gears though, and here, these guys are both working. So let's hear about folks who are, you know, not, maybe they're almost retired, maybe they're not almost retired, but they're definitely not retired.
So my wife, Christy, she still works remotely full-time with her finance job. Same job she had, you know, before COVID and all that. And she's been doing finance and annuities. She's an annuity specialist. Been doing this for I think for somewhere around 15 years now. She's amazing at it, you know, and she's good at it. So, you know, she has the full-time job from back home in the States, which is nice, the kind of steady income, which really helps. And I'm a real estate agent. I was not a real estate agent back in the States. I worked in sales and finance, and then I did some insurance stuff after I left my sales finance job. I was there about 15 years in San Diego, and then I started doing some life insurance stuff, and that was just miserable. I did that for about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years before COVID, and then during COVID, and then right when I moved down here, I was still doing it, but got depressing. I did not enjoy it, and at some point I just said, you know, real estate seems like a fun profession. I like talking to people, and I actually talked to my real estate agent who sold us our place, and she was also our agent on the TV show House Hunters International, Ava, who was a friend. And I called her and I said, hey, Ava, you know, I'm thinking about getting into real estate. And she said, come in tomorrow. And I came in tomorrow, started the paperwork, and pretty much the rest is history. I think that was about 4.5 years ago. It was probably I've been here about 5.5 years, so it's been about 4.5, 5 years coming up. I've been doing real estate and just love it. You know, it's talking to people. I meet so many interesting people from you know, all over. Typically, my clients are American and Canadian. My Spanish is not perfect. You know, I'm trying to get better with my Duolingo and all that. But you know, most of my clients are American Canadian, and typically that's the way it works with gringos in real estate. They're typically most of their clients are going to be American Canadian. That's a big population that buys down here. I have had some local clients, you know, through referrals, but it's typically that population. And it's awesome. You know, you know, I can pretty much set my own hours. I work for an awesome company, RE Mexico Real Estate, and my bosses are awesome. You know, they trust me to, you know, to work and get the job done, and I think I do that, you know, and one of my favorite things to do is go out and just meet people. That's, you know, it's not like you can mail stuff down here like you can back in the States. We can just throw a bunch of flyers everywhere. And so a lot of it is going out and, you know, going to restaurants and, you know, maybe go to a bar, go to a sporting event, and, you know, go to the art walk, you know, go to a concert and talk to people. And I always carry business cards around on me, and met some good friends and clients that way. So it's been awesome. I love it. I mean, Cabo kind of sells itself, so I try to, you know, show people the lifestyle and what it's like to live here and own here, even if they're just part-time or as an investment property. I have a ton of clients that are interested in investment properties, and, you know, they rent it out most of the year, and then they might use it, you know, 3 weeks, you know, 3 months or 6 months. A lot of people are snowbirds down here, and they come down for 6 months, and then they go home for 6 months, and then, you know, maybe they rent it out, maybe they don't. But so that's typically my clients fall three buckets. The snowbird, they spend half the year down here. Investment people that are more interested in just making good rental income, because Cabo kills it on the rental income. It's definitely the best in Mexico and the highest price point for rentals, because it is kind of the luxury. Cabo is basically the golden goose of luxury in Mexico. So if you want to make your best return on rentals, it's definitely Cabo compared to other parts of the country. And then some people that just want to come down here full time, like myself, and they're not going to be renting at all. So that's typically where my different clients fall into.
Well, Dave's contact information will be down below. If you're looking for a real estate agent in the Cabo area, you can reach out directly to him. And I'm going to switch directions a little bit and just hear about, like, when these guys aren't working, what are some of their hobbies or the things that they like to do here in Cabo?
So there's so many things to do in Cabo. It's just, it really, you're always exploring. There's just so many different things that we still haven't done a lot of things that we want to do. But some of our favorite things. I got a big Can-Am, 4-person Can-Am. I'd love to take that out, drive it around. I drive it almost like my normal car. It's highway legal. I'll bring it to work. I'll bring clients out on tours with it. To show them houses if they're more adventurous type of client. There's hundreds of miles of trails back here behind us here. Really trails all the way to La Paz and further up to Todos Santos. You can cross the mountains, and so I love taking that. East Cape, we love going up to East Cape and going up there and have a beer up there at one of the beautiful beach restaurants up there in East Cape. We love to go to new restaurants, always exploring, looking some of the Facebook groups, for recommendations of local restaurants. Some of the people I work with, especially some of my, local Mexican friends, that, they'll tell me that there's a better fish taco than Mother Flower, which I'm always skeptical of, because I think Mother Flower is the best fish taco on the planet. But we'd love to go out, try to find new food, and obviously a lot of our time we're big with. We got 4 rescue dogs right now, and 3 full time, and 1 we're fostering, but we'll see how that goes. Hopefully we don't foster fail, but we spend a lot of our time with our dogs out and about. We bring them out for walks, and obviously bring them out downtown. We just brought them out downtown this past weekend, and they just love it. They're such social creatures, and all former street dogs. So we spend a lot of time just loving our dogs, hanging out with friends, friends from work, other local expats that have moved down here. There's a great expat community. Love going out to watch sports, especially my local Boston teams where I'm from, and pretty much all sports. I forced my wife to go out to watch sports all the time. That was in our vows when we got married. She promised that she'd always watch sports with me, even when it annoyed the hell out of her. So yeah, we just have a great group. We go down to the resort. We bring friends and clients sometimes to the Grand Velas Resort with us, and there's just so much to do. And then we love doing weekend trips up to like Todos Santos. One of our favorite places, Cerritos Beach. We love staying there for like a weekend, get a little beach condo for cheap, and bring the dogs and just hang out in Cerritos. We love going up to La Paz. Loreto is one of our favorite places. It's about a 5.5 hour drive, but great place for a long weekend. There's waterfalls back behind here, beautiful swimming spots and swimming holes, hikes, obviously, and then, we love going down to some of the busier places too, like Medano Beach. You got to be in the right frame of mind to deal with more of the crowd, but it's really fun if you want more of a lively day. Love going down to Medano. We love San Jose del Cabo, especially Thursday nights, the art walk. We love doing the art walk and just walking around and having a margarita, bring the dogs, and watching live music and all the people out and about. And that's where you get most of our artwork. You probably see some of the artwork behind me. We always try to get local artwork from the local artists there, and they're incredible. And it's fun negotiating, doing kind of haggling with the local artist. Try to get a good deal, but make them happy as well. There's just so much to do down here. It really never gets old. There's farm to table restaurants. There's the local taco shops. Go on taco tours. Yeah, there's so many different beaches. We're always finding new little beach spots. Like we just discovered this little beach restaurant about a year ago called Senor Pez, and it's starting to kind of blow up because people are starting to talk about it online. But I mean, just one of the most incredible little seafood restaurants right down here in the beach in the corridor. So yeah, we just do a lot of exploring. I think that's the best thing to do, as a local is explore. Of course, we have our favorite local spots, that we go to, and don't get me wrong, we have our, there's places where, I feel like I'm in Cheers, I'm going in and people do know me. We love going out to find the new places. You got to keep exploring because there's just so much to explore down here. And, 5.5 years in, I feel like I've barely scratched the surface, to be honest.
We all know that before I wrap up a video, I always like to get a tip that's going to be perfect just for you. So let's hear Dave's perfect tip.
Okay, so probably my number one tip would be, I guess it's kind of two things, but it has to do with money. The ATMs, like a good, like one of the legit bank ATMs are always going to give you the best exchange rate. Make sure it's one of the Santanders or the Scotia banks or the Banortes, one of the legitimate banks, not one of those little ATMs on the marina that are going to give you probably a crappy exchange rate and charge you $10 like they do in Vegas. You want to go to a real bank ATM and they'll give you the best exchange rate for getting money out. And then also just always, on top of that, always just carry cash in pesos or dollars, but have cash on you because the locals appreciate so much if you tip in cash. You can pay with credit card. I've never had any issues paying in credit card at even the local taco shops. Most of them all take credit card. But if you tip in cash, they're so much more appreciative because they who knows where the money goes to if you're tipping in cash. Do they get it all? Hopefully they do. But
you mean if they're tipping on the credit card?
Yes.
Because it might disappear.
Yes.
In the process. It might not make it to the
Exactly.
server.
Yeah. So if you tip on the credit card, hopefully they all get it, but they might have to wait a week or two. If you have cash, I typically like to give, for good service around 20%. It's always up to you, but they work mostly on tips down here, and usually they're very hard workers. And if you give them cash tip, they will bend over backwards for you, and they're amazing. So we always carry cash on us, which a lot of Americans and Canadians probably don't do as much because it's not really necessary anymore. But down here, cash is still king, and the locals really appreciate it if you tip in cash.
So let me add on to that a little bit. So with the ATM machines, definitely use a legitimate ATM machine at a bank, but always decline the exchange rate if you get the chance, because then your bank will give you the exchange rate that's usually a little bit better, but they're going to charge you less fees than the ones like you said down at the marina and things like that. And also on the cash tips here in Cabo, you can tip in dollars or you can tip in pesos, and you could pay in dollars, you could pay in pesos. You don't want to give them change in dollars, like quarters and things like that, because those are really hard to get rid of down here. Those are hard to exchange. I prefer to tip in pesos, and if you're in a place like La Paz, definitely tip in pesos because there's not a US dollar economy. They're going to have to go and take your dollars to the bank and then change them out and get a potentially a not so great exchange rate. So if you're in the majority of Mexico, outside of Cabo and Cancun and things like that, make sure you're getting pesos and have those pesos on you, and make sure they're small pesos because they're not going to be able to break a 500 peso note. That's just hard.
And one last thing having to do with that, if you are at a resort down here, bring either US $1 or $5 bills or pesos, and if you tip your wait staff at the pool, wherever you are, at the restaurants, it's amazing how much better service you get. Even if you just tip it a little bit, I usually just walk around with, a stack of ones in my pocket, and I just kind of throw those ones out everywhere, or 20s or pesos is about $1. And I just hand those out everywhere like it's candy, and it's amazing the service I get compared to the guy next to me that's not tipping. I'm getting checked on every 5 minutes compared to the guy next to me where they may not check on you as often. So just bring ones and fives or pesos to the resort, and it's amazing the service you get.
Yeah, ones and fives are probably a good answer for here in Cabo, because when you go to the ATM machine, you're going to get probably minimum at least 100 pesos, which is a $5 bill, or 200 pesos, which is a $10 bill, or 500 pesos, which is like a $25 or $30 bill. And mostly it's going to spit out those 500 peso notes, and you're not going to be able to break them. Maybe they'll break them at the front counter of the resort or something like that, but those 20 peso notes are at a premium down here. That was to the end of the video, so I've got additional videos for you to watch now. Other videos from the Cabo area up here, other videos from around Mexico down here. Check those out next. And from Cabo San Lucas, San Jose del Cabo, right in between, wish you were here. Hasta luego.